Hey YouTube, it's time for review number 3 of the Devon tractor. Actually, just call this the long-term review. I think we've had this now for like 8 years. I've just been really slow in getting part 3 put up, and a lot of people have been asking for it. Well, a lot. It's like 4 people, which is a lot in my in my YouTube experience. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a quick rehash on what this thing is, why I bought it, and what I like about it, what I don't, and what my experiences have been. So this is a Devon tractor. It's made by Dongfeng in China, and it's was available through Ray Hillman of Hillman Implements out of Devon, Alberta. It's almost pointless to watch this, I have to tell you, because this tractor is no longer available at least in Canada, maybe in North America, because it does not meet current emissions standards. So because of that, China has had to up their game a little in the resulting products that you're going to be forced to buy now, which used to be names like Photon. I think Eastwind was another one. They're all made by Dongfeng. You're going to pay more because you're arguably going to be getting a better quality product. At least emissions-wise. Okay, so for quality, right off the bat, quality. This thing is classically Chinese, which is not to say that it's bad. Well, yeah, some things are classically Chinese. That's why we call it classically Chinese, because they're really not that good. For example, let's just have a quick look here. Chinese tires look okay. In around all of these, you'll see cracks, and you can see like the entire tire is like that. And that started probably 2 years after I got it, but they've I keep resisting buying new ones because they just keep holding air. So, you know, why spend the money until I need to, right? What you just saw me doing, lifting these hay bales, this thing would not. Really, this cylinder, so it would lift the entire hay bale up and down, but this cylinder was woefully undersized. You could pick up a hay bale, but you couldn't rotate it. So I replaced these, I call them tilt cylinders. They had like a 1-inch bore, and now they got like a 3-inch bore. Whatever this cylinder is, I matched it to those ones, so now it can tilt whatever it lifts. This thing is also my own creation. The forks that it came with, and I don't necessarily say this is a product of Dongfeng tractors because I don't know who built the fork, but the fork was the same thing. It was made to lift bales of cloud. So I managed to pick up a few, but as soon as I tried to tilt them, the whole thing just twisted and fell apart. So built this thing with a 3-point spear instead of the 2-point that it came with. It also came with a set of pellet forks, which are about as reliable. The forks themselves had to be replaced. What I bought this thing for and what I needed from it, because I'm not terribly naive, I understood buying a Chinese tractor, the first thing I have to buy is a good tool set. And I'm comfortable working on things, so I went into that knowing that was an eventuality. And it turns out that's, largely true. What I needed from this thing was a reliable engine and a reliable gearbox. And so far, the engine has given me 0 problems, not a single hiccup, as has the gearbox, really. The first year was glitchy if you've watched the other videos, because when it was cold, you could not shift ranges. You could shift 1, 2, 3, 4 gear. You could not shift low, mid, and high range. So if you were in low range, if you parked it in low range and it would say -20 out, you were stuck in low range. You weren't getting it into any other, and you couldn't warm it up. You had to put it in a garage to warm it up. Otherwise, it wouldn't go. Now the second year, it was far better. Now it's worn in beautifully. This thing gets, I won't say meticulously maintained. It gets its annual oil change, because I'm not a farmer. This thing doesn't spend 16 hours a day in the fields. We push a little snow, we lift a few bales. So it gets an oil change annually, or every 150 hours, I think I was doing 200 hours. I don't know anymore because the speedometer quit working. I haven't looked, or the tachometer quit working, and I haven't looked into why that is. So when it quit working, the hour meter quit working too. So now it gets a spring oil change, and that's about it. Winter operations in this thing, I think, here's what I think happens. European farmers, I believe, have a need for a 70 horsepower tractor and they buy a 110. North American farmers have a need for a 110 horsepower tractor and they buy a 70. And this thing is made for European farmers. It's not meant for hard, especially winter work. So if you're in Alaska, if you're even maybe in, I don't know, in Minnesota where they have some snow, maybe this would be a consideration for you. The first year it would start down to minus 10, minus 15 without being plugged in. And that was about it. And the problem is, among other things, I suppose, that starter is just way too small. So again, what I think happens is China builds engines from, say, 10 to 150 horsepower. And they build only 3 starters. One for 10 to 70 horsepower, one from 70 to 100, and one from 100 to 150 horsepower engines, I think. And that's why this starter is probably awesome for a 30 horsepower engine and is underpowered for this 70 horsepower engine. And aside from a bunch of machining to make the starter, a bigger starter, fit, you got to get yourself a neighbor like I have who has a friend who recycles buses and has a bunch of these bus batteries kicking around. So you measure the size of the battery compartment, you measure the battery, then you hope nobody's looking when you do your little dance, because you can fit this, which is about 3 times the size of battery that the tractor comes with. I don't know what the cold cranking amps are. What I know is this thing will start the tractor down to minus 15. It doesn't like it, and I don't recommend it. Plug the damn thing in. But if you're in a situation, for example, I got the wood splitter hooked up. It's a 3-point hitch wood splitter. It's driven by the tractor. I got that thing hooked up and I'm cutting wood to beat hell. And the wife calls and says there's a rampaging horde of Hottentots and they're decimating the chicken herd. So I have to go do my manly duty, grab a machete and start separating Hottentots from Hottentot heads. And by the time all is said and done, I completely forget the tractor sitting out here. It's minus 25. And now either I find 800 feet of extension cord to plug it in, or I have a dependable battery and a dependable starter, and this starter is just too weak for the job. If you live in California, maybe if you live in China, it's perfect. Starting it in the summer, no problem. Now, oil can be an issue, not engine oil. I'm trying to see if I can get a picture of it, and I can't really. In the gearbox for the rear tires, there are 2 shafts that go in, and they're connected to the brake pedal, and they have these oil seals, obviously. Those oil seals are garbage. You will replace those at least once a year. Okay, see if you guys can see that. Right there. That lower linkage you're looking at, that's where the brake pedal goes in. Those oil seals break constantly. They're great in the summer. Come winter, they will break, and you're going to have a little red trail everywhere you go. Now, fortunately, you do not want to buy one of these tractors from some guy who just knows he can have them imported for nothing and make a bunch of money. You need to buy them from somebody like my guy, who is Ray, because Ray is about, I think he hit puberty about 90 years ago, and he's spent his entire life, in, around, and under tractors. So when he looks at a part from this thing, he can say, I bet a John Deere part would fit that. And if it doesn't quite fit, he can machine it to make it fit, and then he can tell me how to do the same. So I've got some John Deere seals I'm going to put in there instead of trying to replace those ones, basically every winter. Here's a good indication of quality. Now, not this. This pin came out. They're normally bolted in, but they all come loose. They came out. I was not home, and a neighbor was feeding horses for us, and it's not his fault. He even said the pin is gone, and I thought he meant one of these spikes. But anyways, this pin was gone, and the entire load is supported by this pin, so this thing just crumpled. So we stuck it in a press, fixed it, flattened it out, reinforced it, and if that looks like crappy welding, well, that's pretty much commensurate with what you're going to get Chinese welding too. That's the way it comes out of the factory. But, okay, you can see that where this little sticker used to be, that should have been a sticker that said front end loader. What that sticker said was rotary tiller. So coming out of China, this front end loader was labeled as a rotary tiller. So that speaks volumes to the kind of quality, that attention to detail. Let's call it that, not quality, attention to detail. Now, my apologies to anybody who sells these things. This is the one reason that I will not recommend these tractors anymore. I used to recommend them if you knew what you were getting yourself into, because you're going to have problems like that. Headliner's busted up, stereo's no good, like I don't care anyways. And the fit and finish is just, I mean, look at the hood. This started happening after, I don't know, two or 3 years. And I could probably buff it out and, you know, put a coat of paint on that, but you know, why would I bother, right? The reason I don't recommend this tractor anymore is the visually astute of you probably notice I don't have doors on this thing. The doors were great, especially if you live in Alberta. You need doors on these things. The doors have a restraint mechanism, which is right here. And I'm going to blame this on design, but first I'm going to take the hit for the first one. If the door is all the way open, and that restraint that keeps it from opening too far, if that restraint fails, the door hits up against these tires. But if you look at the angle of the tread and you're moving forward, the tread keeps bumping the door out of the way. Okay, no big deal. If you're going backward, this edge hooks the door and you hear a pop and you're suddenly showered with a billion little pieces of glass. Okay, so I busted the first door through stupidity, really. No big deal. Doors are like $130. They're like nothing. $300. Except the factory has gone to a different cab design. The year after I bought this, those doors are no longer supported. They don't have any. There are none to be found on this planet, apparently. So I was going to make just a plexiglass door, except the Chinese got a little bit ambitious and they actually made this door curve into, it's a compound curve. It curves in 2 directions. So I was going to build an oven to heat up a sheet of plastic. So I built a plywood mold in the shape of that door. I was going to build an oven to heat up a sheet of plastic to take that shape. And I just haven't been able to get enough heat and retain it in that oven to actually do that. So consequently, I have no door. The other door broke as a consequence of the same type of thing, except the tractor just rolled backwards because the brakes aren't 100% either. Inside, again, I'll call it, you know, classic Chinese quality, I guess. The hand throttle, very smooth because it's not connected. The cable that comes out down here gets water and crap or something in there. I don't know what's in there, but it corrodes, gums up, and you can't use this anyway. So at least in the winter, I just disconnect it. Well, which hasn't really been an issue for me. This button is an electrical bypass. Normally to start the tractor, you have to put the clutch in all the way to the floor. So it's a 2-stage clutch. You go in once, disengages the engine. You go all the way down, disengages the PTO, and engages the starter. Closes an electrical switch. It's really no big deal, but my wife and my daughter aren't as strong. They have a hard time getting that clutch all the way down. So I put this in to bypass it. That's dangerous. You can start this thing in gear. Because the starter has enough power to do that. So, you know, you have to have common sense if you're going to do that. So that's just one of the little mods to make this a little bit more user-friendly. Inside, really not that many complaints. As you can see, it's, you know, well, let's say what it is. It's literally falling apart after just a few years. But all this stuff is cosmetic. And again, I used to recommend this tractor because I went into it understanding this was the situation and that I would have to do stuff like that. This, I just have that padded there because My daughter will sometimes sit on the fender while we're driving because she likes to work with me. And then, you know, she bangs her head back and forth between these two posts, so I've padded them for her. These windows, though, let's go to the other one. They make them open, kind of. Okay, I'm probably gonna break it before it opens. It's probably frozen up, but they open and they have a little detent in here to hold them. Forget it. Don't even think about opening these windows. If they open, they will not stay open. They instantly shut again. Fan, it's got to be replaced. It's a godsend on a hot day. Don't get me wrong. I actually like to put a bigger one in there and one on either side. This one, though, it's just that's literally like a little bedroom desk type fan that they've just bolted on here. It does the job, I guess. Works on 12 volts, so goody for them. Stereo is well, it's there. That's about all I'll say about it. These things are loud, as you heard when I was moving that bale. You will not hear the stereo. Forget it. The mirrors. Now I'm complaining about things that I have no experience. Maybe all tractors like this. Forget about the mirrors. When you're driving, they're not really bad, but they shake so bad you can't really see behind you anyways. And it would be nice if they had an easier way to fold them out of the way, because when you're mowing close to trees, they take a beating. That should be, you know, somewhere over there ideally. It's completely, I have to take the headliner out. The motor is somewhere in here, and that shaft is completely stripped. So you can hear the motor going, but you know that thing barely wobbles. So that needs to come apart and be fixed as well. Yeah. So there's another, you know, example of the fit and finish, how it's faded over time. And that's it. You know, I'm not saying that Chinese tractors are garbage, because you can buy this, and we paid I think we paid $27,000 for it. 70 horsepower, came with some attachments. You know, we use it for plowing snow. And I've never babied this thing. I mean, I ram it into some pretty heavy drifts. The loader's been very strong for us. I've walked this thing around on the front wheels because I've had too much weight on the loader. It'll pick it up, and I haven't gotten any ballast in the back tires yet, which is one of the problems. So the loader is strong. The hydraulics are good. It's got some good pull. I really need to ballast those tires, like get some water in them. Well, antifreeze. There's a lot of different products you can put in there, because this thing really is too light to take advantage of the power that it offers you. And we took the rims and reversed them, which gave me about another foot of a foot wider in the back end, just to make it just felt a little bit tippy. Kind of scared me, because you're sitting high up and it's not a very wide tractor. So that gave me a little bit of difference. Did it make any real difference? You know, I've never flipped it over to find out, so how would I know? And the power takeoff, it's got a 2-speed. It's 540 and 1000. And what I love about that is my implements are all made for 540. And as I explained in a previous video, you can set your PTO at 1000, and instead of running your engine at 2200 RPM, run it at 1100 RPM. You still get 540 at the PTO, and you're just not burning any fuel. It has been very fuel efficient. And I have to qualify that again and say, I've never run a John Deere, so really I don't know. I know it's got a 10-gallon tank, I think. And geez, if I'm mowing the pasture or cutting wood, I mean, you can do that for like 2 or 3 days straight on that 10 gallons. It's never been an issue. We had a radiator leak in the first 2 years that, strangely enough, just went away. And no, it didn't run dry. I've been keeping a close eye on it. I don't know where it was leaking from. It's just not anymore. And that's about it. It takes standard size filters. If you change the oil regularly, like you should. And by changing the oil, if you're new to this stuff, I'm not just talking engine oil. There's oil in here. There's oil in here. And this oil that's in this gearbox is also your hydraulic oil for the 3-point hitch and the front end loader, but not power steering. Power steering has its own system. Replace it all. There's a lot of oil in there. I want to say total of about 10 gallons if you do everything, but you don't have to do everything every year. So annually, or every 200 hours, I do the engine oil, and now I do these gearbox oils. The rear gearbox oil leaks out every year right now, so it doesn't have to be replaced. It gets replaced on a ongoing basis. The front gearbox oil, I'll do that every couple of years, kind of on an as needed or if I feel like it sort of basis. The oil plugs have magnetic chips on them. If I take the plug out and there's nothing on it, I don't see much reason to replace the oil. Another problem that we have had with these is right there. That seal that's on the steering linkage is busted. So I regularly pack that with grease just to keep the dirt out. Usually once in the winter, about 2 or 3 times in the summer. And it's the same thing on that side. I can order some new ones, I guess, but what I'm sort of faced, and I may do so, but what you're kind of faced with is, again, Chinese products. If I'm going to wind up doing this every damn year, I think I'm just going to avoid the expense and the hassle and just keep packing it full of grease until I wind up replacing a bearing, I guess. So yeah, so that's about it. Because of their parts availability, you cannot get these doors, which is why I don't have any. I couldn't build them, and I can't buy them because they changed the cab design. That really scares me, because what happens now when I do need a transmission part? And they say, well, we don't make that anymore. Well, now I've got a real problem. Based on that assessment alone, I do not recommend these Chinese tractors. I have neighbors who have old John Deeres, old Whites, David Browns. They were built in like 1932, and you can get parts for them. These, by comparison, brand new. The year after I got it, I can't get a door for it because they don't support it anymore. On that basis alone, I say spend your money somewhere else. If that situation didn't exist, I would very readily recommend this. If you're handy with tools, because you're going to be doing some work on it. I haven't touched the engine. I haven't touched the gearbox. Little things that you're going to be doing, just little maintenance items. That's it.